Legion, and welcome to my channel. My name is Ludi, and today we're gonna do our top 10 most interesting starting nations in 1.30. In deciding the nations, I took into consideration the difficulty of these starts, the locations, unique events, and flavor that these nations offer, and the overall starting situation. Do take into account these are very subjective nations, and nations that I really enjoy playing myself, and that I hope you guys will enjoy also. If we get this video to 1,000 likes, I'm also gonna do a top 10 strongest one province miners in 1444. Coming in on number 10 is the nation of Racids. This 3-province miner starts off with fewer troops than there are rebels in their country, but not to fear, Racids is actually secretly one of the most overpowered nations in the Arabian Peninsula. After quickly taking care of your rebels and consolidating your region here, you can start by forming the nation of Yemen, but keep your Racids ideas, as the Racids have insanely great ideas, including national manpower plus 20%, as well as infantry combatability plus 10 and plus 20 fort defense once you finish everything, as well as 10% morale of armies, goods produced plus 10 as well, trade power plus 10, shock damage received minus 15, together with land leader shock plus 1 and trade efficiency. And we also have minus 10% shock damage received from our school, as we are a Shia nation that follows the Zaidi school, and we can quickly invite a Jafari school into our nation, which is going to give us another plus 10% shock damage. This can be done by getting closer relations with either Shirvan or Bahmanis. That being said, going Cav strong as the Racids is a great idea. Do take very much care, however, as you will have to unify your Yemeni region as soon as possible before the Mamluks or some other bigger nation around you starts exerting their influence and cocks over your expansion altogether. After consolidating Yemen, you can also go into the Hormuz and Hassa area and then expand into India or even into the south, namely into the African lands, if you manage to grab parts of Adal and snake your way down to Ajuran and so on. One more thing to note about the Racids is that they start off as a feudal theocracy, which means they get extra missionaries, governing capacity, and most importantly, they get these special interactions here, namely minus 15% construction cost, minus 20 development cost, as well as a claim on all neighboring provinces owned by a heretical or heathen nation. That means that you basically have the Deus Vult CB around all of your neighbors that are not following Shia, and aside from a few nations in the Yemen area, nobody else does follow Shia here. Next up on our list is the beautiful border-gorish nation of Provence. Provence starts off in 3 different locations within the French region, namely in Anjou, as well as the Provence area in the south and the Lorraine area by the border with actual Lorraine here. This obviously is going to give you a lot of expansion possibilities. You can quickly gobble up all of Brittany if you're fast, and you can also expand into the Italian parts as well as to the HRE parts if that's what you wish to, and you also have the chance of joining the HRE for quicker and easier expansion by simply improving relations with the Emperor. Provence's own ideas are not amazing. They do have plus 10 morale of armies and Diplo rep, which will help since you get the morale of armies from the very beginning. You don't need to unlock it. The rest of the ideas are average, but the best part about Provence is that you can switch on over to either form France or you can re-establish the Kingdom of Jerusalem. That is correct. It is one of the few nations that you can start a holy personal crusade of reforming Jerusalem here. This is easier done than you can imagine. It is vital though that you attack Aragon early on and then snake your way through Tunis and the Mamluks to get the 3 provinces that we need in order to form Jerusalem. But once that is done, you can finally cross it off your bucket list. Provence also has a super great mission tree that even gives it full cores on all of Naples, as well as provides it with all of the expansion claims that it needs and a few permanent modifiers. To top it off, you also start as an ally of the French, so you don't really need to stress that much about being eaten up in the early years of the game, and you can use the French to your advantage, call them in offensive wars, and just betray them like a good old EU4 champion. Throat singing their way into next position is the Oirats. The Oirats are a massive blob of a nation in the steppes of Asia that also have Mongolia as their vassal at the very beginning, and boast some extremely overpowered ideas that include core creation cost minus 20% and cav combatability plus 20% from day 1. And then you can also unlock some land leader maneuver and cav cost, attrition minus 20%, tech minus 5, AE minus 15%, as well as discipline and manpower recovery, and national manpower modifier plus 25%. 25%. You can also reform the nation of Yuan after you've taken care of Ming, and here's the cherry on top of the cake. Oirat has a specific scripted event which happens whenever you go to war with Ming in the early game, where after you've captured the Ming emperor, who will be as a general in one of their armies, you basically get a free kill against Ming. You get a massive buff against them, and within the first 20 years you basically can own all of the northern part of China and use whatever is left of Ming to fuel your future wars. Oirat is probably my favorite nation for world conquests, as you start off with the tribal conquest CB, basically giving you 75% aggressive expansion against anybody. Oirat is also a Tengri Fate nation, which means that you start off with the regiment cost minus 20% and cap to infantry ratio plus 25%, and once you choose your syncretic faiths, you get different bonuses based on whatever faith you go for as your second main faith. Up next is the true Gyros empire of the world, namely Byzantium. Starting off as a 4-province minor with a vassal on the side, Byzantium is definitely a strong choice on this list, but it is gonna have a super tough start unless you watch my guide. This Eastern Roman Empire, if you want to call it that, has seen better days and has the cores to show it off, so a skilled player can quickly gobble up these cores in the first war and the second war against the Ottomans, cutting off their expansion into Europe and then splitting their nation in two, making it easier for the future wars to come. Byzantium is a great nation with insanely good ideas that include minus 10 advisor cost and tolerance of the true faith plus 3, as well as goods produced plus 5 and national manpower plus 10, discipline plus 5 and missionary strength plus 3, as well as a few economic bonuses. The best part about Byzantium is that you have a great mission tree. Obviously, the mission tree revolves around conquering back your lands from the Ottomans initially and then expanding all the way into the Mamelukes and basically all of the previous Eastern Roman Empire lands. You're gonna get permanent claims on all of that, even on Italy itself. So Byzantium, after it secures its initial couple of wars against the Ottomans, is gonna be a massive powerhouse, basically taking the place of the Ottomans. You also are an Orthodox nation, so you have the amazing bonuses from getting 100% patriarchal authority, which include plus 33% local manpower modifier and minus 3 unrest, as well as the icons that can give you up to 5 discipline and manpower recovery speed plus 10%. Do take note, however, that this is a slightly harder nation, so unless you are ready for a bit of RNG and rage quitting, think twice before you choose to start as the Byzantines. Next up is the Wakanda of EU4, namely Butua. Butua starts as a vassal of Mutapa, which means that it's gonna have to fight an independence war, but that can be easily arranged if you either go over your force limit by a bit and you fight it one-on-one, mano-a-mano, or you get some independence supported from Kilwa or their enemies of Mutapa. Regardless how you manage to do your independence war, it is not such a hard war, and after you finish that, you're gonna be able to take full advantage of the ideas that you start off with. You get plus 10 morale of armies and infantry cost minus 10%, together with shock damage received minus 10% after you've gotten your ambition, and you also have some great playing toll ideas mixed in, such as construction cost minus 10, inflation reduction plus 0.10, which is great as we have 4 gold mines within our reach. We start with the gold mine in our capital here, and we have 3 more right next to us and a couple more around the area, or if you're lucky you can even get them from colonizing these areas here. You also have plus 10% infantry combat ability, tax plus 10%, discipline plus 5, national unrest, and trade efficiency plus 10%. Especially for multiplayers, Butua can be a hidden jewel that nobody will expect to deal with. Being a tribal nation, you also get the chance of becoming a horde if you wish to. So think about that for your next playthrough. A massively overpowered African horde? I vote yes. The birthplace of pizza itself, we have the nation of Naples. Naples starts off as a junior member in a PU under Aragon, but don't let that fool you. Within the first year or so, you're gonna get an event that will either give you independence, or if it doesn't give you independence, then you can just fight an independence war, which will be easier since you can take a lot of lands in that war from Aragon for free almost, as Castile and sometimes even France or a few other nations around will support your independence, which means that these bigger nations will do all the heavy lifting whilst you're just chilling in Sicily, taking over this and maybe even Sardinia. Regardless of how you manage your early war, after you've become independent, you have a super great expansion path. Reclaiming the cores that you have on the whole of Sicily and taking over Sardinia is preferable in the independence war or in the first first war against Aragon if you've already gotten your independence, as having these two islands means that you can expand into the northern part of Italy whenever you get a chance, as well as expand into Tunisia and North Africa as a whole, together with the Balkans. There are plentiful of nations in the Balkans that you can attack. I highly recommend you go for Epirus and Byzantium. Vassalizing Byzantium and feeding them back all of their cores means that you are gonna basically kill off the Ottomans early game, and then afterwards can quickly expand and take over the power vacuum that is left behind by their rotting carcass. The Neapolitans have some good ideas as well. They have trade efficiency plus 10% and national manpower plus 20, as well as goods produced plus 10, tech cost minus 5, dev cost minus 10, and morale of armies plus 10%. And the Neapolitans also have a great mission tree that revolves around getting your independence first, and then you get permanent claims on all of North Africa and even on the Holy Lands, which means that you will have an option of releasing the Kingdom of Jerusalem if that's what you wish to do. Marching into next position is Brandenburg. If you're familiar with my channel, you probably are familiar with Brandenburg, and that is because Brandenburg is a great nation and an elector at the start of the game within the HRE. Brandenburg also has a ton of unique modifiers and events that fire up that include the Cell of Newmark, which gives you 2 provinces with cores for free if you pay 100 ducats early on. And if you have the Emperor DLC and the mission pack unlocked that comes with it, you're gonna get free claims on pretty much all of Germany if you follow your mission tree, as well as a lot of unique modifiers and permanent ones for that matter that will trigger together with unique events that can give you up to minus 20% dev cost reduction in Berlin and up to 20 development for free from various events as you go along in the game. The ideas that Brandenburg starts off with include construction cost minus 15 and minus 20% cost to fabricate claim, which is great because in the HRE you actually have a penalty of plus 50%, so that negates 30% of that penalty to fabricate claims. You also have infantry combat ability plus 10, morale of armies plus 10, diplo rep plus 1, and national unrest minus 2. Whilst these ideas are average, the thing is, as Brandenburg, we can form the Kingdom of Prussia, which comes with its own insanely great ideas and government reform. Playing Brandenburg is also one of the best ways of learning how to deal with aggressive expansion and coalitions in the HRE, as it is slightly stronger than the majority of the nations in the HRE, not taking into consideration Bohemia and Austria, and has the advantage of all the claims and the unique modifiers that you can get as Brandenburg. If you really like throat singing, but you're also a masochist, you should try out Sarik Yoghurt. That is correct, the nation that sounds exactly like sour yogurt, but is not really sour yogurt, is more like 100 restarts yogurt, is also similarly to the Oirats a horde in the Central Asian steppes. However, this horde has a great total of 7 development, half of which is basically sold. Don't let that fool you, however. Sarik Yoghurt is a super fun nation to play as you have one expansion path that is decent into Kum, and a much tougher expansion path into Chagatai and Yarkand. I would recommend actually the Chagatai expansion path first, as you can get the Kuka gold mine that you can just exploit a little bit, dev up the production, and actually get some income. You can easily do this if you have a bit of luck and you ally the Oirats, you call them into the war, and let all the hard work be done by the Oirats whilst you're just sitting here and getting the war score. Sarik Yoghurt surprisingly has a mission tree, which is basically the standard steps mission tree, similar to the Oirats tree, and their ideas include years of separatism minus 5, aggressive expansion minus 10%, and you also get land attrition minus 20, cav combat ability plus 20, maintenance minus 5, land leader shock plus 1, core creation minus 25, manpower recovery plus 20%, and national manpower plus 25%. They basically have these standard horde ideas. They don't have any unique ideas, but the standard horde ideas are pretty good. You also can form a Yuan, so if you want to have a super fun game and not an easy game, that's for sure, you can start as Sarik Yoghurt rather than Oirats in forming Yuan. You also start off with the Vajrayana religion as a syncretic religion to your main Tengri religion, which means you actually have plus 2 horde unity and plus 2 tolerance of the true faith. Sarik Yoghurt is also a massive meme in the EU4 community, and it is said that if you formed Greater Yuan or conquered the world as Sarik Yoghurt, your PP will always be 100. When it comes to interesting starts, the nation of Ourdabile definitely has a great and very interesting start. Starting as a 1 province miner surrounded by some massive giants such as Karakoyunlu and Ajam, Ourdabile has a few few aces up its sleeve. First off, you get a couple of cores on Ajam and an extra core on the nation of Biapas, so depending on how alliances are going to be formed at the beginning, you can quickly grab your core on Biapas or even attack Ajam for your cores and a few extra provinces aside from the cores, as Ourdabile is the proper and spiritual nation to form Persia. That is correct, Ourdabile is actually part of the Persian culture group and can form Persia if it has the required provinces. You will have quite a lot of provinces to take in order to form Persia, and you will have to go to war with giants like Ajam and Timurids or whatever is going to be in this area, and you even get a chance of forming the Mughals later on. Despite it being a little bit more difficult, it definitely is a lot more interesting. Similar to the Rassids, you also start off as a feudal theocracy, so you obviously have the same interactions, namely construction cost, dev cost reduction, and the sanctioning of holy word that gives you claims on any heretical or heathen nation that borders you. These interactions are going to make it a lot easier, as will the cores that you start off with, and your ideas are pretty decent as well, as you have national manpower, manpower recovery speed, morale of armies, cav combatability plus 15%, together with tolerance of the true faith and missionary strength versus heretics. Once you do form Persia, it is recommended that you switch on over to the Persian ideas, however. Also to take note, you are also part of the Jafari school of thought, so you have plus 10 shock damage inflicted with your cav and infantry that will definitely help out so much in the early game. Whichever way you go for, you likely will have to go over your force limit and get a few mercenaries. Be careful, however, Ourdabile is slightly tougher than most nations, so only go for this if you have a bit of experience behind you and you finish the 2,000 hours tutorial that EU4 offers. And the most interesting starting nation in 1.30 is the nation of Shimazu. Situated in the south of the Kyushu island of the Japanese islands, Shimazu has the most insane combination of ideas I've ever seen. You get plus 10 infantry combatability together with yearly army tradition DK -1, and afterwards you get as well national tax plus 10. And your first unlockable idea is going to be morale of armies plus 10%, manpower recovery speed plus 15%, production efficiency plus 10, discipline plus 5, land fire damage plus 10%, trade steering, which is super good, as trade steering is one of the most overpowered ideas when it comes to dealing with trade, and tech cost -5%. You also have access to the standard Japanese missions and can of course unite Japan if you've taken over the capital and you've basically killed most of the other daimyos. Truth be told, any of the daimyos in Japan has a really great and super interesting start, as you are going to be always at war since it is the Sengoku Jidai period, and you basically have a massive civil war, so to say, where you get a special CB and you go to war until only one is left in Japan. If you're into battle royales, this is the area for you. But out of all the nations here, a couple of them have great ideas, including Oda, Nanbu, and of course Shimazu. Out of the three, my personal favorite choice is Shimazu because of the super well balanced both military and economic ideas that Shimazu offers. If you're not sure how to expand in the Japanese islands, then you can check my Oda into Japan guide, where I actually explain how exactly to deal with the aggressive expansion and to unify Japan by 14-7. And yes, that was a shameless plug. After unifying Japan, you also can expand using your missions and the permanent claims that come with these missions into all of Manchuria and the surrounding areas, together with the Ming. And if you decide to go colonial, can also quickly access the Malaccan trade areas and even go into the New World, as you can actually bring in trade from the New World into Asia through a couple of available trade connections. If we get this video to 1,000 likes, I am going to do a top 10 most overpowered one province miners in 1.30. Also, let me know in the comment section below if you liked the video. What do you think about the list? What you would have added or changed to it? And I also want to give a very big shout out to all of my patrons and channel members. Thank you so much, guys, for all the support you've been offering me. It really helps me out so much. If anybody else wants to become a patron or a channel member, then you can check the links in the description.